Hello, welcome to The Conversation in News Central Television. This is a program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. Today on The Conversation, we will be looking at the country, Malawi, where there are allegations of corruption levied on two government officials. First, Malawi's Vice President, Salus Klaus Chilima, and former police chief, George Kainja. And meanwhile, in Tanzania, the ruling party CCM says it is ready for reforms in the country's constitution after years of fending off pressure from opposition parties and rights defenders. I mean, it's a very positive one for the opposition group in Tanzania, especially with the ruling party now saying that they're ready for a constitutional reform. And the opposition has been complaining on the fact that there's too much powers placed on the presidency.
But I wouldn't say it's... I wouldn't call it Uhuru yet, because you don't. They say the devil you know is better than the one you don't know, because the process hasn't started.
Yeah.
We don't know what will be in this new constitution, so there's a lot to look forward to.
At least the opposition, the ruling party, has said that they are ready for it. So I think it's a step.
It's a step in the right direction, and it's progress in itself. And also looking at the situation in Malawi, very earthquaking decisions were taken this week. The vice president was stripped of all his powers, and also the head of the police was sacked. So interesting developments.
Very interesting developments there. The vice president and the head of the police team. So right now, let's begin our conversation in Malawi, where the vice president, Salus Klaus Chilima, has denied allegations of corruption contained in the report about a $150 million, that is a £125 corruption scandal involving government contracts. He accused the Anti-Corruption Bureau, ACB, which published the report, of failing to get his side of the story. He was named among 53 current and former officials who had received money from or helped British-Malawian businessman Zuneth Sattar between 2017 and 2021. Mr. Sattar denies any wrongdoing.
Now, following the report, President Lazarus Chakwera stripped Vice President Chilima of his powers, though he cannot sack his deputy, but he has fired his own chief of staff, Prince Damgaga, who was also named in the report. Malawi's Anti-Corruption Bureau has also arrested former police chief George Kainja 2 days after he was sacked. He has been charged in connection with the scandal. And join us on the conversation this evening to discuss this. We have Yvonnie Akonda Sundu. She's a journalist. She joins us from the Malawian capital, Lilongwe. And we also have Mbauwo, Chavula, the country manager of Women in News. She joins us from Blantyre in Malawi. Ladies, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with Mbauwo. Malawian presidents, after the dawn of democracy, have been known to fall out with their vices at some point in their tenure. It happened with Bakili Maluzi and Justin Malawezi. It happened also with Bingu Wamutharika and Kasim Chilumpa. And later, Joyce Banda. More recently, we've seen Peter Mitaruka and Salus Chilima. And now, Lazarus Chakwera and Salus Chilima. My question is, why does this seem to happen between presidents and vice presidents since the time of, since after Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda left power? And what do you make of this corruption charges leveled against the vice president?
On the fact that they always fall out, I would say that the one who is the vice usually also has presidential ambitions. So it is a very uneasy relationship, but you also have to understand that these two, the ones who are ruling at this particular moment, they just went into an alliance of convenience because at that point, they just had to unseat the ruling DPP. So it was always uneasy right from the start, and they were bound to fall out. On the issue of corruption, the vice president has said that his voice was not heard. He was not given a chance to speak. Of course, we understand today he was questioned by the Anti-Corruption Bureau, and he has come out. It is a very fluid situation at the moment. Of course, he says he will fight. We saw two lawyers, very prominent lawyers, going to his house today. So we are waiting to see what the courts will say. But remember, this is not coming from Malawi. This is coming from also an investigation that is taking place in the United Kingdom regarding Zuneth Sattar. So it's a very fluid situation at the moment.
All right, Yvonnie, still on the situation, Chakwera has fired Chilima as Minister of Economic Planning and Development and stripped him of all his delegated power, leaving the Vice President with the responsibility for reforms as his only other portfolio. What are the political implications of this?
Implications obviously will be the issue of Chilima not being that visible because he's not going to have that opportunity to perform some duties that he was able to do by virtue of him being the vice president and then with the president delegating those powers. So politically, it means that Chilima is going to lack that visibility. Meanwhile, obviously, he is one of the politicians in the country that harbors ambitions of contesting for the presidency or probably running the country. So in a way, that has compromised him. And just like Mbauwo mentioned, what this means is that we are going to see a lot of political developments going on in Malawi, and not just in the context of the vice president, but so many people, because remember, the list that the president confirmed this week was that 83 former and current public officers benefited from Zuneth Sattar. And we don't know the other people that are on that list. Definitely, there are some politicians as well. So it's not just about probably Chilima. Yes, Chilima is there because he's the vice president, but there are other people that also run the risk of missing out in quotes on them probably contesting in the next general elections in Malawi. And also, I would like to mention the fact that apart from Chilima being questioned today by the Anti-Corruption Bureau, he also attended a cabinet meeting. So you can see that technically he is not performing, but constitutionally he's still in office. And he was able to attend a cabinet meeting.
Now, Mbauwo, according to a report by the country's Anti-Corruption Bureau, the vice president and 52 current and former officials had received money from Malawian British businessman Zuneth Sattar between 2017 and 2021. Has there been any response from the vice president, Chilima, to these allegations?
Said that he will be speaking in the next week. So we do not know what he has to say, but the issue is, the fact is this issue is in court. It is not a political issue, though some might try to make it like that. This is purely a criminal investigation. And if he has to fight it in the courts. But we also know that this is not just a fight to clear his name, it's a fight for his political survival.
Okay, Yvonnie, what options are left for the vice president since he cannot be sacked by the president? And we discussed earlier the fact that most of his other functions have been stripped of him. So what options does the vice president have?
I doubt he has many options other than just waiting for what the courts will decide. You know, like Mbauwo just mentioned, this is a criminal investigation. At the end of the investigation, he has to appear in court, answer, those corruption charges. And if he's cleared, that is going to, in a way, vindicate him. And that is also going to add to his CV. That is also going to earn him more funds because as it stands, not just him, but as it stands, he has lost some funds. Not just because of this issue, but because of how government has been running the business of the country. So many people have lost trust in the government. So if he gets to be cleared, that is going to boost not just his morale, but at the same time his political ambitions. But in terms of options, he really doesn't have many options. He cannot challenge the president because it's public knowledge that he is among his people that are suspected to have benefited from Zuneth Sattar, and only the courts of law can clear him. So he doesn't have many options, but just counting on the court to probably clear him, and then that's when he can continue with his political ambitions.
Thank you, Yvonnie. Now, Mbauwo, has the man at the center of all of this, the British-Malawian businessman Zuneth Sattar, said anything or given evidence to the ACB, the Anti-Corruption Bureau? I do understand that is answering questions from British authorities. What's his status? And is there an extradition treaty between Malawi and the United Kingdom. Will Malawi be willing to extradite him and question him at some point?
One thing we have to know is that I don't believe this man is going to come and face trial in Malawi. Remember, he's already on trial in the UK, and the UK is also keen to see him maybe behind bars. But definitely, the people that he was associated with in this country, they just have to face justice. And definitely, the fallout is very great. And as I said earlier, the people would want to make this seem like it is a political issue, but really it is not. But everything is so politicized that you really cannot draw a line. But the fact is, these are criminal matters. And Zuneth Sattar, so far, he came to Malawi in March, we understand. Nobody said they saw him, but he did come, and it was confirmed by the British that he did come, and they tightened his bail conditions because of that particular visit to Malawi. So the fact that he already now knows that things are bad for him, I don't think he would even want to come here.
Have the Malawian authorities mentioned him as a person of interest? Are they in talks with British authorities to make him answer charges?
The Anti-Corruption Bureau has been collaborating with the British. So definitely at some point he would have to come in and vindicate himself, clear his name if he can. But from what the ACB has said, the evidence against the 13, and these include the Vice President and the former Inspector General, the investigation has already been finished and they have everything that they need to prosecute.
Okay, Mbauwo, I'll stay with you now, still looking at the Vice President's part in all this. Now, the President Chavula made a contradictory statement in his broadcast saying, despite Chilima being mentioned in the reports, there is no evidence that his deputy indeed received bribe from the businessman. Now, does this give a glimmer of hope for the embattled Vice President?
I don't believe so, because the ACB could not actually get to the extent of actually questioning the sitting vice president if they did not have enough evidence of what they're prosecuting him for. So the president, he has his own issues with the head of the ACB. Their working relationship is not that good. So whatever sentiments the president expressed against the ACB and the substandard report, that's what he called it, he still has to. He said that he goes by the public trust. The people that he has actually acted upon, they work in offices based on public trust. So he cannot afford, as the president, to be seen to be associating with such. As it is now, the vice president is in a very tight spot.
Now, Yvonnie, like we heard from Mbauwo, she said the president is not really in good terms with the head of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. The president, Lazarus Chakwera, described the Anti-Corruption Bureau's report by the Director General, Martha Chizuma's report. He actually said it was substandard, and he said it lacked concrete evidence that can be proved in the court of law. So why did the president, knowing that he described this report as substandard, why would he take far-reaching decisions on the basis of a report which he described as substandard? Is this political?
Actually, that's one of the sticker issues that people highlighted when the president was addressing the nation. They said he is describing the report as substandard, but then at the same time, he is acting on the very same report that was substandard. And I remember reading a comment on Facebook, rather a post on Facebook from one popular lawyer in Malawi. He was arguing that according to the Anti-Corruption Bureau Act, the ACB is not supposed to submit a detailed report to the head of state. Rather, it is supposed to submit a which, unfortunately, because that's not what the president was looking for.
Sorry, can you backtrack a little bit for 10-15 seconds, because we lost you. We had some communication problems. Can you start from where you said she's not supposed to submit the report to the president? Thank you.
Yeah, apparently, according to the ACB Act, the ACB Caesar is not supposed to submit a detailed report to a sitting president. Rather, what he or she is supposed to do is submit a general report. So that's what exactly Martha Chizuma did. She submitted a general report. Now, because it was a general report, it lacked certain information that the president was probably looking forward to. That's what made him to say the report was substandard. Remember, this is the view of a lawyer based on a post that was made on Facebook. When I read that post, to an extent, I quite agreed with him in the sense that it makes sense as to why the report lacked certain kind of information, and then in that case, making the president to say the report was substandard. Now, remember, this is a very hot issue in Malawi. A few weeks ago, the investigative platform, which is a news site focusing on investigative journalists, did a story. And it was that story that mentioned the vice president, the chief of State House chief of staff, and other high-profile individuals in the country as beneficiaries of Zuneth Sattar. So the president, in this case, then, he didn't have any option but to act, because Malawians had been waiting to hear what is the president going to say. So much as the report was substandard, but people needed to see that the president was doing something about this issue. That's why he had to act.
Okay, I'll continue from where you stopped now. You said the people have been waiting for President Akwera to react. Now, in a national address, Yvonnie, on 21st of June, President Akwera laid out what his office will be doing to fight corruption. And he also talked about amending the Public Service Commission. Now, with all these arrests and sacks, will you say the president is finally clamping down on corruption, or is there more to be done?
To be honest, this is a repeated script, because we've seen similar I'll call them stunts in courts happening in Malawi. This is not the first time people are being accused of corruption.
Yeah, but these are very senior government officials, the Inspector General of Police, 7th Vice President. I mean, this is quite big when you look at the scale of it.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is there are so many cases in Malawi to do with corruption, financial embezzlement, that have not been completed. There's a high-profile case of financial embezzlement involving the former president of Malawi, Dr. Bakiri Muluzi. That case has not been concluded. It's been years. So what I'm trying to say is, like in my case, I'm not necessarily looking forward to seeing much action happening. It might just be some lip service to Malawians, but only time will tell. But this is my opinion that, yes, we have this case. The vice president has been stripped of his powers, of his delegated powers. We have the head of the police fired. There are so many people that probably are going to be fired in the next few days or are going to be suspended, that I don't think there is something tangible on our end that is going to happen. If indeed it's going to happen, it may not necessarily that the government is trying to clamp down on corruption, but it will be the involvement and the pressure that might be coming from the UK government, because they have interest in the case.
Okay, Yvonnie, what do you think the president can do to show that he's not just paying lip service? Do you think that the Malawi public service regulations needs to be reviewed?
Yeah, I believe they need to be reviewed. But it's not just those regulations, because corruption is not just about the public service. I mean, the civil service. There's corruption in the public service. There's corruption in the private sector. Even the president, in his address on 21st June, he mentioned that of the 83 people that have been involved, there are some in the private sector, including the media. So it's not just about the public regulations being reviewed. We really need to have to be very serious in terms of implementing the laws that we have. If people are arrested, they need to be tried. They need to face the law. Cases need to be completed. There's no point in us as a country having cases to do with corruption dating as far as 2000. What has been happening since 2000 to 2022? You can't find much that has been happening. So if indeed serious, if the president is indeed serious, what he's going to do is support the SCB and to make sure that there is that conducive environment where the judiciary can perform its role. of trying these people, plus other people that have been accused of corruption before, plus all those people that have been mentioned in this 84-member list, and making sure that the cases are completed. When the cases are completed, people will learn some lessons. Some people are going to be afraid before getting involved into corruption. But believe you me, I don't think there is a Malawian who's never been in a situation that has made them to be corrupt in a way. People are petitioning money to traffic police officers. They are driving with a car that doesn't have a certificate of fitness, but they'll be teaching money to traffic police officers. It's like almost normal.
Okay. I'd like to bring in Mbauwo. Mbauwo, what does the Malawian constitution say about criminal charges before vice president? Does the vice president enjoy any immunity? And when will those that have been accused and named in this corruption scandal, when will they appear before a competent court of law?
The vice president, to a certain extent, he does enjoy immunity, but Parliament can move in and impeach him. If he is impeached, then definitely some of his powers could be stripped. But what I can see is a very long court battle. And unfortunately, that would also infringe on his ambitions to become president of this country, because we know how long court cases can take. For the others who are going to be prosecuted, so far, the police IG was in court yesterday, and it was the shortest, actually, time that somebody had actually been taken to court and given bail. And the people were actually very worried to say, this man, he didn't even spend like 20 minutes and he's already out on bail. So what's the point? That is what is actually giving credence to the fact that people are thinking that this is just lip service, as Yvonnie was saying. But definitely they will have their day in court. We are waiting for the more arrests. Actually, they were supposed to be today. So we don't know what will happen as the day goes to a close. But as I said, it's a very fluid situation.
Now, you mentioned something quite instructive earlier, Mbauwo. You said a lot of people are making it political, but it's a criminal case. But the actors, a lot of them are politicians. And we, like you did mention, this was almost an unholy alliance. They came together because they wanted to get rid of Peter Mutharika, and they did it last year. So my question to you is this: what are their political parties saying, and what are the feelings on ground? Ordinary Malawians, discussions in Lilongwe and Blantyre. How do people feel about this high-stake political drama that we're all witnessing?
Actually, as we're speaking now, there is a meeting of all the alliance parties. There are 9 of them. And the vice president, interestingly, has also gone to that meeting. The outcome, we are yet to hear, but definitely there is no longer any alliance. And people have been saying there hasn't been any alliance in the past year. We have seen a rift. Of course, the president and his vice, they come out and shake hands sometimes, but you can actually see from the body language that there is a very big rift between them. So the outcome of that alliance meeting will determine the future of the vice president, especially politically, as he fights in the courts to clear his name in the corruption scandal. And for the people today at his residence, there were a lot of people, supporters of his, who were chanting songs against the current president as he was leaving to go to the alliance meeting. So it is very clear that we are heading towards a tipping point.
Okay, Yvonnie, let's hear from you now on this alliance, because while swearing in ministers earlier this year, President Chakwera told the newly sworn in ministers that they report to him and only him, that even though it is an alliance government, he is the one who appointed them, and they should not be under any illusion that anybody from the individual political parties influenced the decision to appoint them, and that did not help matters. Now, do you also agree with Mbauwo that there is trouble in paradise and there is a rift in this alliance?
There is a rift. What is just remaining for it to be very visible is the day these two, that's the president and the vice, will speak against each other in public. That's the only thing that is remaining. But when you go on Facebook, you literally see supporters of President Chakwera's party poking fun at supporters of supporters of Saulos Chilima's party. It's like these supporters, these cadres, are always looking forward to an opportunity for one of these two to make a blunder, and then boom, they start attacking the person that has made a blunder. So it's more or less like a celebration for some, not all of them, but for some supporters of our President Chakwera through the posts that they are making. They are making jokes. They are making fun at the fact that the vice president is among his people that have been mentioned in terms of issues, corruption issues to do with Zuneth Sattar. Now, how do you have fans or probably supporters of an alliance in government doing that? That just shows that probably these people are not just doing this for fun. They are not just doing this blindly. Probably they are informed by some senior officials within their parties as to what is happening behind closed door. So this is how far the rift has gone. That's why I am saying it's just a matter of these two probably contradicting each other in public, and then that's when Malawians will know that there isn't an alliance, or there hasn't been an alliance.
Yeah, that's the only thing left that like you said. Now, Mbauwo, I'll let you have the last word on this. And correct me if I'm wrong, President Lazarus Chakwera is almost halfway through his first term, I believe.
Yeah, he was elected 2020.
He was elected in 2020. Now you have 2 more years to go in this alliance, and things already seem fractured. Will this have any implication on governance and delivering on his promises to the Malawian people? This rift between him and his vice president and all of this corruption scandal that is unfolding.
I think, as you spoke about earlier, it's almost like it's now normal for Malawian presidents and their vice to fall out at a certain point, and the vice president is relegated to either he goes to court to fight to clear his name over some allegations or what have you. But then definitely, if the president actually is serious about fighting corruption, it will have a very big impact on his presidency, because the people have seen that he has acted this time. But is he going to see it through? Is the ACB actually going to prosecute? These are big names we're talking about. So if he successfully prosecutes some of them, definitely it will have a bearing on his presidency if he wants to stand again in 2025.
But then he will be losing his other half, the alliance, and would he stand a chance of re-election if he's lost the other half of the alliance?
You have to understand that the MCP that the president belongs to actually holds a majority in parliament. Yeah. And there have been rumors that they are thinking of going back to change the 50+1 law. So we are watching that very keenly. If they manage to change that, then he could definitely win without the 50+1 requirement.
All right. Thank you so much, Mbauwo, for joining us on the conversation. And of course, thank you very much, Yvonnie Akonda, a journalist from Lilongwe, Malawi, for also joining us on the conversation.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll switch discussions to Tanzania, where the ruling party has decided to agree for a constitutional reform. We'll be right back.